Hi everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. On this episode, delighted to be diving into Appalachian literature of many types, many ranges, I think is the way we might say that, although that now conjures images of the Appalachian Range. Nevertheless, we are talking on this episode with Kentucky author Rob D. Smith. Rob, thank you for jumping in and talking with me.
Thanks, Jason. I appreciate this.
Yeah, my pleasure, my pleasure.
This came out from Shotgun Honey Press. It's coming out together.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. So you are the author of Good Looking Ugly, which I've been called at least one of those things in my life. I'm not going to tell you which, but yeah, curious about what led you to the written word. What made you want to tell stories?
Um, I was always reading a lot as a child. My mother always had books available for us, and the public library wasn't close, but we had a bookmobile, and especially the summertime was like we're out of school. I would use the school library when I was a kid, but getting into the bookmobile was awesome. Just a big van with books just piled into it was just awesome. It was just so many different books. But I also was drawn to the artwork too. So children's books or middle grade or anything like that. I think they called it middle grade back then. But I also was drawn to comic books.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, Long time comic fan. Um, So the spinner racks when we go to the grocery, and my mom would go around the whatever grocery we're at, Kroger's or A&P or whatever it was, and I would just hunker down at the spinner rack and just start reading every comic I could read. Um, and then it's funny because and even in the grocery stores, my mom, as I grew older, I would read magazines, and then I'd slip over to the paperbacks. They have paperbacks just stacked over there by the magazines, and it'd be men's adventure magazines, westerns, Louis L'Amour, um, Stephen King. I have Eric Van Lustbader. A lot of stuff
Mhm,
I probably
mhm.
shouldn't have been reading. I need to bring it up to my mother, but it's like, you wouldn't let us watch R-rated movies. You took cable out of the house when there was a nudity scene on one of it, a paid cable. And then, but you'd let me read books about, murder and mayhem and all kinds of violence. And they had plenty of sex and language in there too, but nobody ever put a parental guidance on any kind of paperback books I was getting from the library or the rack. So I could read anything I wanted.
Nice. And I kind of got the impression you were a comics fan, just noting we have Detective Comics,
Oh yeah,
Ultraman, Rhino. You're
yeah,
sort of surrounded by some interesting characters that I love
yeah.
all around you there. So cool, very cool connections. I also enjoyed access to the written word and got to read some things and a few movies as well that were at the boundaries of what was going to give me nightmares at that point in my life. Uh, so curious about your writing process, curious about those stages of editing and writing as
Yeah.
you kind of embark on this.
I'm a big believer in I don't. This is a caveat. There are no hard and fast rules for everybody. Everybody's writing styles are different. So every writer you'll talk to will have a different way of getting to their work, getting their work done. So I'm somebody that needs to write consistently. So once there's a project in mind, I need to write, if not daily, pretty much daily, at least 5 days a week.
Mhm.
And I have to set consistent goals for myself, or I won't get it done. So it's not word counts. It's more I write for like an hour and a half in the morning. I get up at 5 a.m. Um, and I don't like the. I was talking about this last night, but I write in the computer. I don't write longhand. The only time I will write longhand is if I'm writing a short story, and I can write that anywhere. Like I can write in my truck or my car or wherever I'll be in the parking lot before, but I can write in a car and write a short story, and then it's easy to transfer a short story to the laptop later on. It's kind of like a second draft when you're doing it like that. But a novel, I like to go straight into the computer and start. So that it's just a bigger, longer process. But I like to write at 5 a.m. in the morning, the earliest I can. I don't have a lot of time to write before I go to work, and it's quiet time, and I don't have any music on. I'm needed quiet. I stare at a wall.
Mm.
Well, it's actually at the desk back there at the corner of the wall. Um, and I just get into it and start writing for at least an hour, hour and a half. So whenever I get done, usually it's 500 to 1,000 words. It depends on how I'm going. Um,
Nice. Wow.
yeah. And I do plot too. I don't, I'm not a pantser. They call it a pantser, which is somebody who writes about the city of pants. I have to have at least a bare bones. I'm not like a really in-depth, um, outline, but I will have beats and I will have I know where I'm going to the end, at least the major plot points I need to hit. And then I'll have um, I'm kind of one of those guys that even though I won't stick to the the outline, I will venture off once I get going, see how the story goes and the characters start making up their own minds where they want to go, and I'll kind of replot every now and then 3 chapters ahead. And then one thing I like to do when I'm finished writing every morning is I'll take a post-it note and I'll write down what I want to write tomorrow morning when I sit down at the desk. So it's like, tomorrow we're going to have him, shoot the neighbor or whatever. And I'll write down, I put it on my laptop, leave it on there, shut the laptop. So when I open up tomorrow, I have exactly what I want to write.
Mhm.
And that way I don't have to wait around thinking, what am I going to write for an hour? I just get right to it and not waste any time, start writing. So that's usually my process.
Nice, nice. Love it. And always interested to hear about process and the way that that sort of comes to be because there's this fear of the written page, there's
hmm
this mystery of the written page. So always glad to hear about unlocking that. Curious about Good Looking Ugly, how it came together.
Yeah, the title is kind of what I came up with first. There was a French term called I actually have mother is well, the ancestry is French, but I took French for a couple of years and I still butcher the French pronunciation of stuff. But there's a term called jolie alade, I believe that's it, and it means good looking ugly, and it's
Uh,
a term for somebody who's not conventionally attractive. Like they may be, they may have a certain flaw, like a gap in the teeth, or some kind of, their eyes may be different, or maybe their hair is wrong, something's wrong with their hair, something, too long legs, something that's off a little bit.
mhm,
But they still have that appeal. They still have a swagger or confidence or an attractiveness that pulls you to them, even though they're not by the norm standards attractive. So that was I like that term, and and plus it sounds cool as a title. So it's like good looking ugly. And then there was there was a quote from a Boris Karloff character in a movie called The Raven, and it's an old movie, 1935, and it's not anything to do with Edgar Allan Poe. It's just this movie where uh, the Karloff plays this killer who's ugly. He hasn't had he's had a unseemly appearance and he's had a violent life.
mhm,
And he's talking to this doctor who wants him to kill his wife, and he's going to give him a surgery to make him look better. And he goes, the killer has a quote where he says, "Ever since I was born, everybody looks at me and says you're ugly. It makes me feel mean." And so I thought that would be, yeah. How would you feel if you were really, I mean, that ugly, where people were just constantly looking at you and saying stuff to you, and just really, how would I feel? How would I feel if somebody was just constantly picking on me and
mhm, mhm,
from an early age on? So my character Daniel is has a face only a mother could love, and even his mother could love him. So he's not a terrible guy, but he does have this temper that comes up into him when people, um, you know, spend too much time staring at him or saying comments to him, or even probably the worst is when they pity. When they give him pity,
mhm,
he doesn't really
mhm,
care for that. And he kind of goes into this temper fugue state where he loses his mind and kind of like a berserker kind of thing. And he kind of hulks out and just starts kicking everybody's ass, and he gets in trouble. So he has some violent stuff, but the judges take pity on him when he comes to the court case because they see how unattractive he is and how he's kind of homely, and so a lot of his jail sentences are small, or they don't last very long. So this last time though, if he gets in another fight, he's going to long prison term. So he's in court, ordered anger management therapy, and he's trying to stay out of trouble, working for the zoo. And then his cousin shows up that he hasn't seen in 10 years. He had a falling out with his family after an event of his anger, and he hasn't seen his cousin in 10 years, and she's his favorite cousin. She's his favorite person in the world. She never looked down on him. They always had adventures. She made him laugh. She made him feel alive.
Mhm.
And so he starts feeling alive again, but she needs a favor from him. She got in trouble in the county she's from. Worked, she had a boyfriend who ran the cockfighting ring for the Kentucky Fried Mafia,
Mhm.
and she wants to. She's kind of under the gun where she doesn't have any options. She doesn't have any choices. She needs Daniel to help her rob the cockfighting championship in Kentucky. So it's actually the world championship. So he doesn't want to, but he does. He doesn't want to lose his cousin again. So he goes with her, and then that's where the rest of the novel takes place. See how they if they get away with it, uh, and you know, but it's really about violence, the currency of violence, the relationships of family and cousins, and you know, and just landscape of Kentucky. Really, that's kind of what I'm writing about. And Central Kentucky, because people get they always think of when they hear Kentucky, they think Appalachia. So
Mhm.
they think Eastern Kentucky's, they think the hills and the hollers instead of Kentucky has many different not many different regions, but different regions. Central Kentucky is bluegrass and more bourbon and the uh, the limestone caves and so it's like aquifer versus, and then the Western Kentucky is different than that. It's, they do have
Mhm.
some coal fields there, but it's more of a different land and then land of lakes and things like that. So it's a different it's different than what it is Northern Kentucky, which is kind of like Louisville and it's North Central. Yeah, so it's a different than what everybody thinks. So I'm trying to show a different aspect of the Kentucky. I grew up with my family was from the Central Kentucky area. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, and it's a true thing too. The cockfighting championship of the world was in Kentucky. It was more towards Eastern Kentucky, not the Central Kentucky, but kind of moved it to where it needed to be for the story. Um, People come from Dominican Republic. They came from Philippines. The cartel was involved. The state troopers of Kentucky were security. The sheriffs of the county were part of security. You would see judges. You would see political people there it was a 3,000 seat arena they had there it was a Bluegrass Sportsman Club. This is recent too. This is probably 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. I wasn't aware of it until I started doing some research for the book. But you see videos of it. Some animal activists have some information. Like some videos you can see of the drones, and then people actually walking around in the stadium arena. Yeah, it's pretty wild that this is true though. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, as you're thinking, as you're writing, do you have a project that is currently developing as a follow-up?
Well, I didn't think of this book as being a sequel, but seems like some people that have read it, none, not none of them are. I mean, they're not my friends. They're people, strangers that are like, "Hey, maybe you should write a sequel." I'm like, hadn't thought about it. I mean, I could. So that's in consideration. But I'm also working on a short story project, uh, collecting some of my. I've had over 30 short stories published, and I've got these crime stories featuring women protagonists or women as the center of the story, and it's going to be called "They Do Get Weary."
Hmm.
And so I'm going to do some. I'm trying to shop that around. I'm trying to write some original stories for that, and not just have all of my older stories. But I want to write at least two, maybe three more stories for this one, and then I'm going to start shopping that. And after, I think I'm going to try and write a horror novel.
Nice.
Uh, I raised Catholic, so I have a lot of ideas about the Catholicism and the iconography and Exorcist was one of the possession demon possessions are kind of one of my favorite horror genre. Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay was one of my favorite books, recent one. But the uh, Sarah Grand wrote a novella called "Come Closer" that every year at Halloween, everybody one of my suggestions to read. It's a really good book. I think it gets taught a lot in college classes. Um, but I like the ambiguity of possession. So I might write a possession novel with a uh, failed firefighter who goes back to her doesn't go back to her old school, but goes to a friend who's a priest, takes her, and she's a custodian for the school. And there's a um, exiled exorcist who's been sent there by the Vatican to kind of lay low and lick his wounds and clean up from all the hardship he's had trying to do exorcisms and things. So, and he's kind of embarrassed the church actually, so they kind of put him in exile. And so there's some potential of a relic, and possession of some of the kids and affecting the school. And so it's got a lot of stuff going on, but I didn't really want to write it. And my mom's gonna love it. She's gonna be like, "This is so sacrilegious, Robin." I'm like, no, it's not. It's I'm trying to treat it with empathy, so
Yeah.
which is how I write most everything. So it should be okay.
Yeah, yeah. Well, glad to hear that the creative wheels are turning, and anywhere that folks can go social media wise, websites, book festivals, and things of that nature that you'd like to share about.
Um, Things that we're going up right now. I work for a shipping company. It's Christmas season's coming up, so it's kind of a busy time. So next year, the 2025 will be the when I'll start hitting some more events and some festivals and things like that. But you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Threads, and Blue Sky. It's all Rob D. Smith or Rob Smith 3. You should be able to find me not too hard. Shotgun Honey is my publisher. If you go to the website, Shotgun Honey, which is a great publisher, they have a long list of other authors you could read. Very great authors all on there. They focus kind of on crime fiction, dark crime fiction, um, a lot of rural crime fiction. So you'll find a lot of stuff that's set in well, Appalachia or West Virginia, Kentucky, any rural Tennessee and Alabama. So you can find a lot of places that'll, if you like that kind of fiction, it'll be a good place to go to and find not just me, but a lot of other authors that I think you would like.
Nice, nice, awesome. Well, Rob, glad that we connected. Glad to share about your work, and glad to have you back anytime.
All right. Thanks, man. Appreciate it, Jason.
Yeah, thank you.